Am I audible? Is it working? It's working, okay. So the next session, E, is about new approaches for museums. Here, there are two presenters who are going to share their case studies. So we have two presentations for this session, and one is on-site speaker from France, and the other online speaker from China. So we would like to welcome our two speakers for this session, and I would like to welcome the first speaker of the session, Apolline LEFORT. She is the curator in charge of the collection at Muséum d'Histoire Naturelle, Besançon. She is a geologist. She works in Switzerland. She studied in Montreal, Canada, and Paris, and in various other parts of the world. The topic of her presentation is Draw Me Your Planet. The presentation is about an ongoing exhibition, which is till November. Please welcome Apolline LEFORT. Please, over to you.
Bonjour à tous.
Hello, everybody. I'd like to thank ICOM
de la traduction,
for the translation.
malgré le fait que ce soit en une seule langue. Et je vais choisir la facilité.
I'm going to work in French, which is the easiest language for me. So this is an exhibition that took place in the Citadel in Besançon between the 13th of April and the 3rd of November. Fairly unique with some quite surprising objects. Yesterday we talked about complicated subjects like climate change, and this morning we very complicated subjects. So I'd like to talk about something in a more poetic and philosophical fashion, because we were all in front of the same scientific problems, historical problems, and I really appreciate this international exchange. Let's have the next slide, please. Okay.
Donc voilà, la citadelle de Besançon.
If we talk about the citadel in Besançon, where is it? Well, here it is in France. It's in the northeast of France, slightly further north than I work in Switzerland, and it's a UNESCO site. There are 3 French museums, one which is geological, which draws about 300,000 visitors a year. Now, from the public's perspective, it's like a natural history museum. We have a public which is very varied. You know, when you can imagine a museum that goes to, I don't know, look at deportation, resistance, etc., probably not going to have the same kind of public. Anyway, we're in the Jura, which is a geological formation, which is fairly well known. It's a natural history museum with a very small permanent exhibition covering 140 square meters with historical specimens. Very complex story, more than 250 years of collection here. There's also a zoological park. We're asking quite a lot of questions about that just now. Given the current context, when we look at animal well-being, there are questions, ethical questions, philosophical questions, scientific and political questions that have to be asked, but I'm not going to ask them today. So we have, there used to be a curiosity shop in Besançon, and the first one dates back to 1793. This is a collection of roughly 1 million objects, which are all very different, largely from the local university in Franche-Comté. We have herbariums, and obviously we have a great paleontological basis, because we're talking about the Jura, the Jurassic period. It's really the base of notably we're going to talk about, you know, the superior Jurassic. So the exhibition was a joint venture. It was quite unique for us. With the Dérol house, there are many institutions might have objects which have come from this teaching institution. This is a scientific institute which aims to teach, to inform, and it was born in the 1900s. And I think the picture of poppies has gone around the world. And also the foundation for Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and of course his most famous work, and I think most of you are familiar with this, is The Little Prince. More than 50 million copies have been sold, been very well translated, equally as translated as much as the Bible has been. So it was interesting to work in this tri-partnership, and to create something. Now, if you haven't read the story, I would invite you to read it or even reread it. Talk about this person, this little person who takes care of the asteroid, takes care of the planet, his home, and his home is the planet. We have to take care of our planet. That's our home. It's an immersive exhibition which takes place outside and inside. So perhaps the technical booth could show the film that I'd like to share with you. And the footsteps of the little prince then. Inviting the public to discover, to learn, to marvel at the pieces in the collection. It's a totally immersive experience. As you can see, there's artwork outside as well. Quite surprising objects. You can have a guided visit, go to workshops. So that's a little extract illustrating the poetry that we have endeavoured to create around the journey, the family-based journey, using different tools, mediation tools which allow us to go further. Nature is an adventure at home or outside. There are lots of little steps. I saw the butterflies yesterday. It's interesting because we have little butterflies. Everybody who goes through can write a word, write a little note or something and hang it on a butterfly, or write it on the butterfly even, and it's going to be hanged on the wall there, hung on the wall. Each one saying how they're going to take care of the planet. However, we don't want to target guilt. We want to target innovation, inspiration. We've worked internationally with Juhi in Besançon, which has a miniature version of the exhibition. Now, the social link is part and parcel of what we do. It's part and parcel of the nature. Does nature exist or not? I'm not going to talk about that today either. But the idea was to be able to share the 10 steps with the public, to share the unexpected. Of course, life is full of unexpected turns. We have a plane that was created by workers in Besançon, and that's at the outside of the exhibition. I want to talk to you about the imaginary, and I think Nantes is possibly the most propitious spot to do just that. Because when we talk about the work of Saint-Exupéry, you know that the little prince meets an aviator in the desert, and he asks him to draw a sheep. So he draws a sheep, and he doesn't really want it. He draws another sheep. It's too old. The little prince doesn't want it. So the aviator says, look, I'm bored. He draws a box with 3 holes, and the prince is delighted because inside the box he can see everything that he wants, everything that he could possibly imagine. So we took the image of the box, and we had an exhibit, almost like an old curiosity shop inside this box, which allowed us to exhibit our treasures, ones that are rarely exhibited. We don't have any temporary exhibits. So sometimes you're talking about exhibits which haven't seen the light of day, sometimes for 30 years, sometimes for hundreds of years. So we worked on all of the different stages, and we worked with the locals on this because We don't want to be exemplary because we are talking about ecology and in the environment. So we worked in a very local fashion, working with people from the greater region, the greater Besançon region, artists, tradesmen, children, school children who showed a particular interest in various art forms. And we encouraged the imaginary. This was built in partnership with this high school, which manufactures exceptional furniture. It's very specific to France. And we worked with them. We worked on the project, the scenography, the furnishings of the room. Extremely rich exchange when we analysed their creativity. It was quite exceptional. They created mock-ups. The teachers got involved, spent a great deal of time helping. I don't think they counted the amount of time they spent on this. And we worked with them, hand in hand with them, to build this exhibit. These children were incredibly resourceful. And these are educational fields which are not necessarily given their appropriate value in France. So it was wonderful to see them so invested in the project. And here you can see one of the pictures. This is at the very beginning of the ocean this ocean scene where you've got the spline, and this is the waves in the ocean. You can see there's a unicorn tusk. This is all imaginary, let's remember. So you come into the exhibition and you meet that. So you see this beauty, this imaginary, and this encourages, I think, as humans to go even further into subjects which are quite difficult, to examine the universe, to examine what we're doing. And we realize with the ocean, you know, if you look at the seabeds in the deeper parts around the Marianas Trench, for example, there are things we just don't know about the ocean. So this is all discovery. This is an entrance into science. We are pulled forward by the aesthetic, by the imaginary. Every little element was really designed by the students. Now here you have a more forest setting. It's dusk. You've got legends, you've got stories afoot. Culture and nature are abundant. They live in harmony. Again, a bit of a storybook theme going. You've got Little Red Riding Hood, Princess Mononoke. You're going to have stories related to the wolf. You've got La Fontaine's fables. You've got the wolf and the fox. Alice in Wonderland. All of this is testament to storytelling. This is a giant crystal from the university, the other side of the mirror. And what do we see on the other side of the mirror? We see mines that are still being exploited in Madagascar, using child labor. So you know, depending on who visits the museum, depending on who's talking, you get what you want from this exhibit. You can look at, you know, cultural catastrophe, or you can look at storytelling, or you can strengths and weaknesses in nature. The bull, look at the bull. It's a bull which represents sturdiness, force, strength. But it's a bull from the corrida, from the bullfighting ring. So you see the fragility, the vulnerability. You can also see butterflies in his chest. So really, everybody can interpret what they want at any different level from this exhibition of the imaginary. Every single object has been chosen, certainly for its aesthetic presence, but also for the narrative that lies behind it, with very little text around. If you look, you can see there's very little text. A great deal of mediation, however. This is one of the spaces where we treat in a very sort of random fashion the subject of world crises, the extinction of the dinosaurs, mammoths, etc. We had some fun. We were working in the imaginary, so we had fun. I asked my curator assistant to produce a chimera, which he took extremely seriously. You've got a mixture of camels, bulls, and horses here. So they've got a three-headed chimera. Look at the tail, for example, that's several meters long. It's a tribute to the imagination of my fellow curators. It has a scorpion's tail. However, we're going to say the chimera is a very kind animal, eats grass, and inside its body there is a rose, because the essential message of the Little Prince is just that nothing is really invisible, because we don't see with the eyes, we see with our hearts. We've restored some objects, as you can see in front of you, Dr. Ouzou in papier-mâché. You've got a human skull. And this, I think, is complementary to some of the issues that were raised this morning. And then there's slightly more fun articles which exhibit the diversity. Oops, I have to go quicker, apparently. And so I'm going to get to my conclusion. So it's an ongoing exhibit. Please come if you can. Besançon is a small town, but it hides several marvels. I think there's a great deal of potential in Besançon, a great deal of cultural wealth. And I think we can still marvel, we can still touch and explain with the natural history collections, because that's one of the questions that was asked. Can we still do it? And yes, we can. We've decided that you can anyway. And I can confirm that the beauty of being simply in front of a marvel can help pass the message on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Apolline, for this amazing presentation. We would like to hear more during the question and answer session. Next speaker is our online speaker, now Shuang. I would like to invite Shuang. So she is the research associate of National Natural History Museum of China. She is going to talk about the topic exchanging exhibitions between museums, the case of National Natural History Museum of China. Shuang is the Deputy Director of the Preparatory Office for the National Natural History Museum of China. It's new venue construction. She has been working in the museum since 2008. From 2009 to 2019, she has worked in the exhibition department. Then she transferred to the Preparatory Office and specializes in international cooperation. Now please welcome Shuang for the presentation. And before she starts, I would like to tell our online speaker that she has in total 13 minutes for the presentation, 13 to 14 minutes for the presentation. Is she here? Okay.
Am I clear?
Okay.
Am I clear?
Shuang, please start.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry.
Yeah, we can hear
Hello.
you.
Greeting from Beijing. Thank you for giving me this chance to share some exhibitions of our museum. Our museum, the National Natural History Museum of China, established in 1951, is formerly known as the Beijing Museum of Natural History. Currently, the museum covers a floor area of 23,000 square meters, including 9,000 for exhibition. We have 11 permanent exhibitions in the building, and each year, temporary and traveling exhibitions on different themes are also presented. The museum houses about 400,000 specimens covering many fields. Our museum holds an exchange exhibition with other museums focusing on life evolution, ecological environment, and biodiversity conservation, sometimes in combination with hot issues of social and public concern. A good exhibition can transport visitors to magical places. Our first exhibition traveled internationally is the dinosaur from China. The exhibition features a full display of the dinosaur discovered and excavated domestically. We cataloged about 150 sets of fossils and casts to tell the evolutionary scenario and the ancient geological variations within the current Chinese border. From 1986 to 2009, this large-scale paleontology exhibition has been displayed among 20 countries and territories. After curating and operating exhibitions with international partners, we were eager to enhance local exhibitions. Because as a state-sponsored museum, the free admission policy was implemented in our museum since July 2008. It challenged our serviceability, and we relied on renovating exhibition facilities to better cope with the sharp surge of visitors. In 2009, the origin and the evolution of human beings, Charles Darwin exhibition was on display in our halls. It was a chance for the locals to discover the scientist and the revolutionary theory that challenged our understanding of the world. It also was a combination of the imported Darwin exhibition from the American Museum of Natural History and customized with our paleontology and anthropology collections. The curators of our team believe the collection was always for the public to see and enjoy, so he created an intelligible display of the evolution and a rich illustration of human characteristics in different stages, with incredible, revealing, and rare exhibits. Some were on display for the first time. The exhibition was the first of its kind for our museum, with the recreated Darwin studio, refined skeletons and models, and a live iguana tank. Meanwhile, as the free admission exhibition lasting 3 months, we started this project in April 2008, displayed it in December 2009, and expended more than 4 million Chinese yuan. So we get the idea that exhibition designed well is a sophisticated, difficult endeavor. Curators, designers, and artists collaborate to project a unified visual aesthetic, from graphics to panels to exhibits and more. Holding the Darwin exhibition in Beijing has inspired us to design more traveling exhibitions, such as the Wisdom of Plants and the Skeletons. The Wisdom of Plants exhibition displays the adaptation in plants. It was originally designed for schools in distance, with 170 specimens, including plants from the polar regions to the tropical forest, and with interactive items and lectures by curators. It has traveled in schools in Sichuan, Xinjiang, and Inner Mongolia from 2012 to 2013. As an exhibition of low size and conservation requirements, after changing to standard display panels, the Wisdom of Plants was showed in Zhejiang Museum of Natural History in 2015, and then in museums in Yunnan, Guizhou, Chongqing, and Jiangsu until 2023. Besides, we make good use of our specimens resources and launch the skeletons as a traveling exhibition. It puts together 57 sets of skeletons from 47 species in 25 families to demonstrate the exquisite structure of animal bones. But to be honest, a traveling exhibition with many skeletons and specimens is a challenge. I'd like to take this as an example. Last November, our museum co-hosted a biodiversity exhibition with the National Museum of China, Our Common Home, A Miracle of Nature. It was displayed at their spacious hall of 1,600 square meters, and we selected more than 600 pieces of specimens and fossils from our collection to interpret this theme. It was the largest collaborative work for us in recent years. The distance between our two museums is less than 6 kilometers. but the transportation, installation, and everything else was not easy at all. So I guess that's the reason our museum generally exchange exhibitions, not collections with others. The expenses associated with logistic costs and the insurance requirements can be significant and should be taken into curatorial considerations. So when the Dinosaur from China exhibition ended its tour in 2009, we rearranged those distinctive specimens by different scales or related topics. So we have the Dinosaur Mummies exhibition in 2017. It's based on the mummified dinosaur fossils found in Western Liaoning province and focused on the mummification of the fossils. The exhibition generally equipped about 30 fossils and can fit in about 200 square meters. And then we designed the Juhi Biota exhibition in 2019. It features about 100 well-preserved fossils of plants, fish, reptiles, birds, and mammals, indicating the process of biological evolution from primitive to relatively progressive. Some of the discoveries are published in world influential scholar journals. Some even changed the published texts. Here is the list of our traveling exhibitions displayed in different museums in recent years. By engaging in those exchanges, our museums has the opportunity to showcase our collection and research results to a vastly expanded visitors. The exchanging between us is an enriching and beneficial practice that fosters long-term and fruitful partnerships. Here are some exhibitions we invited from the other museums. You can find different topics: natural science, indigenous culture, biodiversity, and arts. Those diverse and attractive exhibitions demonstrate a way for our museum to fulfill the social responsibility. These collaborations enable us and other museums to share resources, knowledge, and expertise. And of course, these practices can have a positive financial impact on us. We can boost the revenues through ticket sales, souvenir purchases, and other related activities. This additional income can then be reinvested in the institution's exhibition, collection, education programs, and research projects, ensuring the sustainability of the platform. Therefore, even the exchanges are not without challenges. We are very pleased to work with museums and foster respect and appreciation on nature among visitors. We can budget carefully and work closely with partners to ensure the feasibility and success of each exchange. So I believe an exchanging exhibition is a dialogue which will contribute to the creation of a more inclusive and understanding community. Thank you.
Thank you, Shuang, for this amazing presentation and for to be within the time. Thank you so much. Now the floor is open for question and answers. I would like to invite our physical speaker to please come on dais for the question answer. Can we take questions? Is there any question or comment? Okay. So if there is no comment or, okay, you have. Okay, please.
Yeah, it's your presentation is very nice, and yours too. And I would like to ask you, because you spoke about Marvel amaze visitors, and it's a way to explain more dramatic subjects, if I can say. And so, what do you think between amaze, Marvel, collections, through collections, between speaking about threats in front of us, which way is the best to explain our main issues, our main challenges that we have in front of us?
On a fait beaucoup de médiation orale et les personnes étaient sans cesse présentes dans la salle pour pouvoir répondre aux questions
the galleries, a lot of mediation, if I may say, or moderation to answer the questions that our visitors had for us. Now, obviously, well, we would adapt our answers to the visitors, right? Some visits had no questions, right? Or saw no questions. I think it's so wonderful to see how you can just appreciate and marvel at looking at what the world has to offer, the depth of the seas, but not only that, in Besançon. Boom. Now then, answering the difficult questions, I'm not sure I am the right person to answer that, because, you know, I mean, well, we, let's say, we don't really know much about the traveling history of some of the pieces of our collections, but I think this is the history of the museums, NNHMC museums, that we would have to write. I could say, for instance, okay, if we take the butterflies that we present in the bull's chest, that's something that is quite intriguing, because, you know, bulls don't eat butterflies. Huh. Perhaps the bull has butterflies in its chest because the bull is in love. I don't know, you know. It's not necessarily what we believed that the people see in what we present. And so I think it's quite interesting to take for what they are all the questions that the people may have. Now then, some adults do not dare ask questions because they believe that they're not legitimate to ask questions. But, well, we want to encourage them to do so. And we believe that everyone is legitimate to ask any questions they may have.
Je voudrais poser une question à notre collègue de Pékin.
I have a question for our colleague from Beijing. We saw exhibitions that represented artifacts, fossils, which are really interesting, and we know how rich the paleontological history of China is. Now, how do you tackle the issues that we tackle in our presentations? So you have the artifacts and the collections linked to issues that are, let's say, hot topics today, linked to the environment and so on, which are also issues in China. So how do you tackle these issues in the National Museum of Beijing? Do you have exhibitions that deal directly with these issues? Do you have collections or exhibitions that deal directly with these issues? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. To be honest, we do have some exhibitions about, I would say, during the pandemic, we have a microbiome exhibition to tell the people how to coexist with the microbe. But as my topic today is the exchanging exhibitions of our museum, that was a temporary exhibition held in our building. So I didn't make introduction to that exhibition. If you are interested in that exhibition, I would like to give more information next time.
I was really interested to see your collaboration with the school in Besançon. It's not something I've ever thought about, using those skills to build an exhibition. How did it come about, and would you recommend it for all of us?
So are you talking about the schools? I guess you're talking about the small schools, so the primary schools and so on, right? Well, these were public schools, right? And I'm talking here about high schools, right? On the co-construction. And this was indeed a very nice partnership and a very nice experience, working with a certain number of experts and specialists that we have in the vicinity of Besançon. And so, well, the schools organized with their classes this theme of Le Petit Prince, and then we worked in 4 areas. So we worked with a certain number of furniture building schools, then we worked with pottery schools, then we worked with schools that work with iron, and so you perhaps saw origami foxes in the exhibitions. Well, these were let's say, proposals by a certain number of schools. So they took ownership of the fox in the Petit Prince, in the story, and this was their, let's say, guideline for the whole exhibition. And then for the furniture schools, or the furniture building schools, the teachers, in this case, with one class, worked on this topic, and this integrated the whole curriculum of the year, the school year, and so they worked on a certain number of creations, the paperboards. They also actually went all the way to building a certain number of structures and infrastructures in the exhibition, and the idea was to give this opportunity to the schools to show what they could do. And we also invited the families of these pupils and students and to come for the inauguration, and for them to see what the kids were capable of doing. And then, yeah, the contract was, okay, we pay for the material and the equipment, and then for the learning, well, it's an exchange between the teachers and the students. But it was really, I think, very beneficial, in any case, interesting for both parties, right? And if we take the creativity of the younger generations, it's just incredible what they're capable of. And as we were really free in the way we wanted to imagine the presentation of the artifacts, it wasn't so difficult for them to give a more artistic answer, because sometimes when you have let's say, a very framed, let's say, approach, it's not that easy for them. And so we really wanted to show them that we trusted them, and so, yeah, it was free imagination from them. I have a question for Apolline. The exhibition has been very successful. I think it's still on for a couple of weeks. And many people from Besançon have visited the exhibition already. How will you maintain this rhythm? How will you ensure that the people, society, stay, let's say, enthusiastic with the new exhibitions to come?
Well, I think step by step is the answer. When you look at the collections, they have a regulatory status since 2020. So 2024, we were able to show the public what we were capable of. And also, we use the way in which we exhibit. It's not simply our exhibit. We have a multicultural site, and for future projects, well, they're all very different. But perhaps some will be less visible, but there are some projects underway, for example, the writing of a book about all the exhibits. So we don't have, we need to do that. We don't have any real written support to talk about our collections. We need to put that in place. And that's what we're doing. We're looking about the foundations of a museum like ours, and we're going to talk about the collections that are hosted within. We've had high times, and we're hoping to have more of them. When we talk about, changing the inside of the citadel, we had to do some things, because the citadel, it was, the heat was just running out the windows and the doors. So we had to do something to make sure that we could generate the conditions necessary to host any kind of exhibit and also visitors to the exhibit. And we'll be able to talk more about all of that in the upcoming years.
Question? Okay. So actually, it was really interesting for me to listen to this, but I have one question. So because your exhibition is participatory, totally participatory, so did you find any difference when you were planning this exhibition and how it came up and how it is being perceived by the audience?
What do you mean, really? It was participatory in its construction, but it was very much managed. It was in a framework. And also when we talk about participation with the public, especially when I look at the little images I spoke about earlier, well, that works very well because we have guest books all around the place where we ask people to make a comment or to make a comment on social network about their experience. So we're not quite at the end of the season, so I couldn't give you an overall assessment, but I would say that very generally it's participatory, yes, and we want to be, and it works well. Yeah, I will say that it works well.
So it met your objectives that you were planning at the beginning of the exhibition? I mean, because when we organize an exhibition, we have certain objectives in our mind, and for such kind of exhibition, it's really we have to plan strategically for it. And then how are you seeing it? As you said that it's going to be over in November.
Up until November, that runs till November. But I think that the strength is that we're taking very few risks because we are working with the Saint-Exupéry Foundation. So we're working in sectors which are fairly well known, a private foundation with a universal figure, the Little Prince. They would only have given us complete validation if they were sure of the success. Sure of the success of the project. You don't have this foundation as your partner if there's any risk. You have to be quite a serious player and serious in your discourse and in your intention to share the values that they defend, that Saint-Exupéry defended. Who was a member of the resistance. He was a writer. And the Little Prince is, for goodness sake, it's so well known all around the world. And if you use this ecological prism to examine the book, you see it finds its fullest meaning today. And I'm not entirely sure that Mr. Saint-Exupéry knew that when he was writing it. Probably not. But this small child, and where there's no temporal point of recognition exists, is able still through all that to talk to everyone, to talk to us all.
Shuang, as you were telling us about the collaborations that you are having nationally and internationally, can you share any challenge, the biggest challenge that you faced? You were talking about many things and you also focused on challenges, but the biggest challenge that you faced while doing international exhibitions? like in terms of the collection movement or in terms of the funding thing?
I think for international cooperation, funding is definitely a challenge. And besides that, it's the time. We have to do the planning at least 1 year before the exhibition displayed in the city. So like I said, for the Darwin exhibition, it took us almost 2 years to do the funding, do the project and the planning. Even we apply some certificates and apply to the government to get the sponsors. So for international cooperation, that's all the problems we have. So you can find, in recent years, we seldom host an international exhibition in our museum. So that's the reason. But for the domestic cooperation, I think one problem we're having now is the lack of interesting exhibitions to exchange among the natural history museums. We always show some about dinosaurs and something about the skeletons, and the natural science. Covers a lot of fields, but for some audience, for some visitors, their interests always be something big, something new. So we are, for the domestic cooperation, I think the curatorial consideration is one challenges we are facing now.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments?
So this question is for Apolline as well. So this may be a little bit dumb question, but just out of curiosity, I wonder, after the exhibition ends, where will the artifacts and works go? Is there any possibilities that these artworks can be reused or exchanged to other areas?
It's a good question. It's a question that we ask often. We have several regional partners who ask the question. We have partners in Asia as well, because the foundation works a great deal in Asia. And I think many of them would like to export some of the elements, but this is a concept which is adapted to each individual area. Certain people have a role to play, and can they be reused? Can they be reacted? I think that's, yes, I think that's what we want. That's also the desire of the foundation. So this 10-step concept can be transposed elsewhere. For us, we are going to ask that very question shortly. We've got corporate sponsors who are perhaps going to manifest some kind of interest in some objects, so perhaps some will go to permanent galleries, others that will be used in mediation. We're going to reuse as much as possible the elements that have been produced, including the furniture, without wanting to show any kind of exemplary behavior. In the region, we're looking at temporary exhibits, but we want to give them some kind of durability, some kind of sustainability. It's time-consuming and costly, ecologically speaking and financially. So you're looking at a long season, and with material which can be reused. We have a giant boa constrictor which moves around the walls of the citadel, and all of the wood to build this boa came from the forests around Besançon, and it was harvested, so to speak, by those in charge of green spaces in the city, and it will be used perhaps afterwards to heat public heating systems or be made available to the general public, which we really are actually trying to be virtuous without trying to take the moral high ground. We're trying to be very virtuous in our approach.
Okay. So I would like to conclude the session here, and thank you so much for these speakers, for this insightful and wonderful presentations. And this brings to the end of the session.
Dear everybody, announcement. We will have our lunch at the same venue as yesterday. However, the staff is still preparing for the catering. So while it will not be ready until 12:30, and so before that, we would like to invite you to have a walk in the beautiful garden. Maybe Philip can help introduce that garden a little bit, and then we can slowly walk and enjoying the sunshine we had in the morning to the lunch venue we had yesterday before 12:30. Oh, yes, thank you.